You know, when YouTubers or even like, let's say, Twitch streamers, they say something along the lines of like, at the end of every video or stream, they say like, thank you guys for the support. It really means a lot to me. And please like, comment, subscribe to my channel, yada yada yada. Some people, they only really do it for the honorifics, whereas other people genuinely mean it. Now, I think in my case, please correct me if I haven't actually done these sorts of things, but I think I have numerous times like openly reminded people that I don't give a crap about how many subscribers my channel gets. And the only thing that I kind of take note of is just the number of views to see which video does better, which video doesn't do as good, and then I try to like adjust the kind of content that I put out. And that's pretty much it. But I'm more of like, I just want to share stuff as opposed to like just, bring in the views, even though I am monetized. But some people have been accusing my viewers of being loyal to me without much thinking or anything. When the whole purpose of, this space that I have created for people, it's to foster critical thinking. Critical thinking doesn't mean you have to agree with me. It could also mean like, are you able to tell which statements of mine are true, false, potentially false? And critical thinking also means that you are given the open space to agree or disagree with someone else with substantiation. And you guys know that I have clearly conveyed that to you all like many, many, many times. Although I have banned a few commenters because they keep talking without logic and try to impose it on other people. Or they might have said something that's like completely off tangent to what we're trying to discuss. Because when you think about like quote unquote, there is also no one that has enough influence on YouTube to challenge my views per se. I mean, people are already like openly challenging my views as of this point in time in the comment section, obviously. And because my space is a space for you all to, I mean, the space that I've created is a space for you all to develop critical thinking together. I actually welcome these kinds of like, mini debates. Not serious debates or anything, but like just casual mini debates. Although if some people actually want to get into a semi-serious or like serious debate, I am open to it as well. So when I think about it, like it just doesn't sit right with me how some people they just want their stuff to like have a better reach as opposed to like, actually facilitating quality discussions with the reach that you already have like currently. So for me, I do have a Japanese audience. I do have audiences, I mean, an audience from Singapore as well, even though they are the minority at this point in time. And again, regardless of like which country, I do have like a bus audience, very few train audience, and then an elevator audience as well. So essentially, it is already comprised of bus enthusiasts, non-bus enthusiasts, and within non-bus enthusiasts, they might also be enthusiasts of like other modes of like transport, like trains, although I don't even post plane content generally, or elevators, stuff like that. And then people inside the industry, be it from LTA or like the PTOs, some of them do know that like, I exist in this space. So yeah, that, and they may not be enthusiasts. They just happen to work in PTO or LTA or whichever other statutory board or public transport organization, whatever you call it. So the main point is that like I have like a mixed audience per se. It's not just catered towards like people currently residing in Singapore or anything. So speaking of like support from the, let's say, bus community in general, like I've never really like cared about it. What I care about is more of like me just talking about things or posting about things that may or may not be interesting to other people. Like I just post stuff. Like I just focus on like posting stuff as opposed to like, oh, am I really reaching out to the correct audience? Blah blah blah. I sometimes I don't even really think of that honestly. Although sometimes I'm like, oh, hey, this video might interest like Japanese viewers or something. And that's pretty much about it. Like it just stops there. Support, like if any, I just let it all come naturally per se. Like it's not the end of the world if I don't get like support from a specific branch or group or demographic of people in general. So to me, I don't really understand why some people really, take it to heart when it comes to like receiving support from like, let's say, bus enthusiasts in general. And then the whole thing about Intel is more of like, I don't get why some people outside of YouTube they decide to kick a fuss when Intel doesn't come true, when I'm not even really that concerned about it in the first place. Like all there is to it is I hear stuff, I share stuff, and that's pretty much about it. And even if something doesn't come true, like what I've always mentioned, you could always learn something new from it. Like why did it get rejected, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. Some people have also like quote unquote, not quote unquote, but like some people have also called me out or they dislike me because of my unprofessionalism on YouTube. But then I'm like, what else do I have to do when faced with like this kind of people in general? Because if I were to just talk with this tone that I'm currently talking in for like 15 minutes of the video, I think everybody would pretty much switch off at that point in time. Because I just believe in the fact that like respect should be earned and not automatically handed to you, in the sense that like if you go around like spreading stupid things, obviously you're not gonna get respect from people, right? So because of that, right? Like if you comment stupid things, I am not entitled to like react to it in a positive way or anything. And most of the time it's not really because like, oh, I hate you as a person or anything. No, it's just because whatever you said just doesn't make sense. Especially after like I've reminded you like multiple times already. And then y'all still continue with like this kind of behavior. So I'm like, uh. But then again, I don't want to hide my feelings. I don't want to be fake. I just want this space to be a space whereby I show you guys like my true unfiltered self, and that's it. The thing is, I need to do this, but I believe in full transparency. And if people want to claim that others are like quote unquote staunchly loyal to me, this is basically what you don't see on YouTube. And not every YouTuber does this, but I'm just doing this just to show you guys what actually goes on behind the scenes, like when me and my friends are actually discussing issues together. So basically, you guys can just read this. The ones that are in gray are by my friend. Some of you actually might know him, but if you know, then good for you. But their messages are in gray, and the ones that are kind of like this purplish blue. I know the color isn't like really rendering correctly on my phone screen, but I mean the phone that I'm using to record right now, but the ones in quote unquote purple and blue are my own messages. And then this one is like the one unique bus stop only served by 246 and 258M. Sorry, this thing is like kind of in the way. So this is just an example of like the conversations I have like behind the scenes. And then again, this is all done like very casually. No one's really like forcing ideas on each other. We are kind of like acknowledging what each other like we have to say about things. So I present the whole 181 combining with 246 whilst preserving this hub spoke sector thingy. Like I just present to him visually so that both of us can determine if this is like truly a good amendment or otherwise. But the main focus is not really on whether this, idea is good or not. It's the fact that like I have my own ideas, my friend has his own ideas, but we just share it and then we discuss and we come up with stuff together. And this one is from another person responding to kind of like the same issue. So they talked about like outdoor boarding and the kind of like challenges and restrictions that and the risks that like come with it. So my messages are in purple this time. I don't know why Facebook Messenger is like this, but it's purple now for some reason. And I mean for a different conversation. And then I think it's probably because my friend changed like the theme of it or something. And then the top part is basically from me. So yes, you can clearly see what he's trying to talk about. And the reason why even if you put bendy buses on a certain service, like basically the one that my other friend was discussing about, it wouldn't really work in practice. Now, even you guys know I love bendy buses, but I have to admit that yes, bendy buses they are indeed prone to this kind of fare evasion if you do not have staff to like actually monitor the boarding process. Cause it's like it has three, four doors, stuff like that, right? And it's quite taxing on the bus captain themselves if they have to observe, oh, who tapped your card and who didn't tap your card. It's just impossible when you have like so many people boarding at the same time. So you would actually need to send a staff, a PTO staff down to the bus stops whereby you would implement outdoor boarding in order to like facilitate this process and to ensure that the bus captain doesn't get unnecessarily fined. Because if a ticket inspector catches the BC not enforcing fare payment properly, it's not just the commuter that will be fined, the bus captain would be penalized as well. So I'm very thankful that like my circle of friends is like filled with people who actually know a thing or two in the industry, even though they have never been a part of it because, like, through word of mouth or stuff like that. Again, in case people want to, like, doubt that, like, my intels are not credible, yes, they may not be credible in certain scenarios, but by the way, this is not my intel. I'm just saying, in general, it's intel for a reason. Like, they are not meant to be the most accurate, but it gives you a rough idea of like at any given point in time what are the kinds of discussions that are actually taking place behind the scenes. But when I say intel, I actually use it quite loosely. It's actually like, let's say my friend, like this friend, he hears it from another friend who hears it from their intel. It's actually chain sent as is. So that's how I usually get my insider information per se. So if you notice, like, why these people, their responses tend to be a bit more substantiated than the typical average YouTube comment, right? It's because they have contact with other people who have contact with people in the industry, and that's how like the learning process actually goes for everybody. So again, instead of like writing an entire, let's say, 15-minute thesis statement about why my idea is good and it's the only way to go about doing things, what I usually do with my friends, like off YouTube, or what I usually do with my YouTube commenters in the sense is that we engage in like this kind of discussions per se. Like any route suggestions we have, like let's say skip ahead 126 for example, like we just share them around with one another like very very casually, and then we just have fun like discussing about it. We're not the kinds that like we do an entire bus network reorganization or something along those lines and then we send it to LTA and we take it so seriously. No, it's more of like, oh, if we have ideas we just like casually discuss about it, and we don't, we just don't take it so seriously per se. Like with this friend of mine and with other friends of mine as well, we have floated like ideas, like let's say this is just one example, the one that I usually talk about, but I have never ever imposed this on people. In fact, some people even gave me suggestions about like, okay, what if we merge 129 and 506 and probably use 139 to compensate the deleted sectors of 129 a little bit within TopIO, which means that like we would make 139 throw a little bit within TopIO, maybe up to Brattle, and then we would let it kind of like wrap around and then hit to TopIO, something along those lines. But again, it's all very, very casual. Like, my friends do not impose this on other people. I do not impose this on other people. It's just nice for discussion, that kind of thing. Cause even before whatever happened recently, the whole 246 green and white plate thingy, like the discussions per se between me and my friends, this idea has already been floating around like the general community for like years already. In fact, I would say maybe around 2021 per se, when they actually kind of got into bus route planning as like a casual hobby or stuff like that. So this idea, it's not new per se. We have already been discussing that before. And yes, I do bring up this bus stop, yada yada yada. But again, the difference is that like we don't really spend time writing an essay and then say that people have to agree with this essay because it is the absolute truth or something. No, we just casually crayon stuff and we just check with other people to see if like it'll actually be beneficial for the residents living nearby, stuff like that. Just very casual. So the whole issue about like let's say bus wasting, like in the case of like 132, even though it's not in this context per se, but like bus wasting, duplication, low service levels on let's say industrial services, overcrowding, bus bunching, bus spam, or stuff like contraflow link. Even though in the case of 246, right, the quote unquote contraflow link, whatever they're talking about, doesn't even exist 24/7. And that's the reason why 246 frequency is regulated per se. And that's why 240 has more buses, because obviously 240 serves more dense areas and 246 serves less dense areas and doesn't really have a whole load of demand 24/7 per se. So basically what I sent to this friend, like this friend of mine, I'm just gonna read it out to you. So this was extracted from like, okay, Potential concerns bunching mitigated with bendy fleet and outdoor boarding. This reduces the impact of high boarding packs count at any particular stop on punctuality. Brackets reduces dwell time. Empty industrial sector during off-peak periods with low demand, buses can pass through the sector quite fast. This, in italics, reduces wastage brackets by reducing quote-unquote dead running time as a percentage of total runtime. It doesn't matter if like you run through the dead sector slow or fast, it is still considered like dead mileage. Because wastage isn't like quantified by how long a bus spends in the dead sector, express sector, or what. It's the fact that the dead sector is actually measured in kilometers, regardless of how fast or slow a bus actually passes through the dead sector. This is just how they quantify. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but I'm just saying currently, when it comes to operation, dead mileage in terms of kilometers as opposed to like how much time you spend, it takes precedence over like every other thing, basically, when it comes to like route planning in general. And then I'm gonna read again. Industrial sector, two potential scenarios can result, and both are beneficial to commuters and operations. Number one is that buses simply fly the empty industrial sector, reduces the fleet requirement and thus overall wastage. Two, PAX, more like 2A, PAX use the industrial sector as a shortcut from Taman Jurong to Boon Lay, thus distributing the high loading on the 240 sector to the empty 246 sector. Okay, but the thing is, this doesn't sit right with me. Because you already have the 240 sector, and then you already have the 246 sector. Like currently there is already demand, so you don't have to change them, and you wouldn't really even um like you're not really solving anything. 240 sector will still have demand, 246 sector will still have demand. And then here is part 2B that is labeled as 2A. So I find this one a little bit BS. What was stated is that third scenario during peak hour where running high frequency in both directions enables you to spread out the huge industrial and residential demand combined across both directions. So this friend of mine reacted to every single thing that I sent him, and this part over here was basically his raw responses to whatever I sent him. Like you know the points one, two, two A, two B. I sent him all this, and then he just called BS straight away. Like he just didn't even really want to elaborate or entertain them, and because both of us already know anyway. Like we already knew the arguments were like quite whack, and we didn't really want to entertain it further. So eventually, we just like switched topic. Again, like I told you guys, it's all very casual because my friend, when I told him the one, two, two A, two B, he thought that basically like these people don't have a good conceptual understanding of what they're even talking about in the first place. So that was my friend's reaction. And if you guys have been observant enough, I don't know how else to like prove it to you guys, but like I think this alone, plus whatever I said just now, is really enough proof that I do not force my opinions on other people. Okay, technically right, in the context of 246, whatever I stated here is actually not that relevant per se. But can you see the way we actually do things? We are just very casual about it. Like we are just talking about it in a very like lighthearted, conversational manner, not really writing like 15-minute thesis statements. Although we could do that, but only if there's really a need to like only if there is really a need to explain this or that concepts using examples or stuff like that. But usually, even our essays per se, like our comment essays, aren't really even that long in the first place, with some exceptions. But then again, the main point is that we just don't really take it that seriously. Like, we just have like healthy discussions and debates with one another. We don't even say, oh, SBS, SMRT, LTA has to do this. Otherwise, even if we do say that and it comes off as such, we just mean it in a very lighthearted way. That's just how we talk. Especially if we find that a certain amendment would actually be beneficial to residents. But again, we don't hard push it. We just speak from experience and that's it. Okay, with that being said, right, I fully understand why these people want a closed, gated environment. Because they just don't really want people to disagree with them. They don't really like criticism. They don't really like anything that goes against their core values or something like their route planning principles, their own ones, not the official ones. So this gives them like the reason to actually limit their audiences. It's like they invite more people, but only the ones that they are comfortable with sharing their stuff. They share it to those people. But it just doesn't really sit right to me, at least, that back then they actually spread their ideas to different Discord servers, and when people retaliated against them because they were being very forceful, they didn't take it that well, and this is what even caused them to close up in the first place. I mean, you just don't go around forcing people to agree with your ideas, right? Especially if it's like bad to commuters in real life. If it's just like a fun challenge and you just want to share your map around, okay, fine. But again, don't impose things on other people. But again, sorry, like what really doesn't sit right with me is that eventually, like they have a plan to send their stuff to LTA. When that happens, that will unfortunately embarrass all of us unless somebody could actually send something that's of quality before them so that LTA knows that there are people who know how to think and that any actual bad idea, they just know how to toss it in the trash, that kind of thing. But it's like they want LTA to see their ideas. That's one thing. But they eventually also want the public to see their ideas as well. So, what difference is it that people are taking your ideas public now and later? I just don't really see the difference in that. Because I just don't really understand why they are so like protective of their bus route amendment map that got leaked out by me through other people. Wait, did I say the correct thing? Leaked out by me through other people. Yes, 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 that's correct. Again, it goes back to the point of like, why are you concerned about leaks right now when your stuff is eventually going to be public in the first place? It's kind of like running an organization or like, let's say you're a K-pop group which is about to have another comeback song and then somebody just spoils the fun and leaks it prematurely, right? Yeah, I can understand from that point of view. But the thing is, like, if your ideas are already like more or less set in stone because you just don't want to change these ideas, it's like whatever there is now and whatever happens later on. If like if people are so resistant to like changing their own ideas, even though said ideas have gotten backlash before, then what is the difference between leaking said ideas now and leaking said and publicizing it in the future when said idea is already more or less like set in stone. And it's not like people are trying to like, you know, paint an inaccurate picture of them or anything. No, it's like they were the ones who actually said whatever they said in the first place. And we're just quoting word for word. It's like it's difficult to even get their actual ideas because it's so gated. But when they publicize their gated ideas, we just take it word for word. That's it. But I just don't really understand why something that is meant to be a fun hobby for everybody, it just has to like turn into a super serious thing. I just feel like they pretty much run like an organization right now, and anybody who doesn't like agree with them or leaks out their material actually gets kicked out. Like there is a difference between having like a healthy debate and discussion versus I have this idea, I just want people to agree with it. Like you get it right. It's like, oh, my idea is already set in stone. I just want people to support and rally behind the idea that I have, and maybe I'll accept minor tweaks, but this idea is already set in stone. I want people to agree with it. That mentality versus our mentality, which is more of like we just discuss stuff casually, and we just try to understand each other. And the thing is, like, in terms of like taking responsibility, right? I am technically the cause of all of this happening, but honestly, how else should I have reacted? Especially when the Singapore bus community's image, which is already tarnished, but like you just don't want it to get worse, right? Especially when you see people who cannot plan bus routes to save their lives, right? It's like when the community's image is at stake, not that it's even good in the first place because of what people did in the past and the present as well, and also because the commuters like livelihoods are at stake, and also the fact that like the actual commuters might actually start blaming the authorities for such ideas when it didn't even originate from them in the first place, because a group of teenagers just tried to like hard sell and lobby for their idea, and then masking it off as like, oh, we consulted bus enthusiasts, we consulted bus industry experts, we consulted like actual residents, even though I highly doubt that. And the number of bus captains they actually interviewed, or like the number of industry experts they actually interviewed and stuff like that, I highly doubt all of that. But honestly, touch your heart. Like, as people who love buses, and as people who understand the way why certain routes are just like that, because they serve a purpose, blah blah blah. But like, it's like, is it responsible for you that you know all this stuff and you just sit back and do nothing and watch these people just slowly destroy the Singapore bus network, especially if LT eventually entertains their ideas, right? I mean, that's the reason why I put like LT and PTO, please take note in my videos, because, I feel that people need to be informed beforehand so that when the thing actually gets sent, they don't get like shocked and disgusted by the way teenagers think. Basically, I don't know how to say it, but it's like it's just to cushion, like, before the thing actually gets sent, it's kind of like a brace for impact kind of thing. You don't really want people to react so negatively when the time actually comes, when the thing actually gets sent, right? So I feel like it's better to actually like forewarn people before such things actually happen. And why do we care is because we just feel that it's like really unfair that like the commuters have to like suffer just in the name of like research and development, or in the name of like, oh, I just want the teenagers to start developing a love for our public transport opinions, so even the shitty opinions we start taking them in. I just really don't want things to reach that stage per se. And honestly, it just really sucks that like it's not even like a legitimate Singaporean saying this. Like an outsider actually has to say this on behalf of Singaporeans. I actually feel kind of disappointed in that sometimes. But you know what? I just do what I have to do, I guess.